Welcome to Backbone Unlimited. My name is Matt Hartsky. In this episode, we're tackling a question that hits a lot of hunters hard every single season. Where do elk go after opening week? If you've hunted much at all, you know the story. Opening weekend is alive with bugles. Fresh sign is everywhere. It feels like the mountains are packed with elk and the energy is high. But fast forward just a few days, maybe a week, and suddenly things get quiet. The bugles taper off. The fresh sign is harder to come by, and it feels like the elk just vanished. Here's the truth. The elk didn't disappear. They didn't get beamed up by aliens or run off to a different state. They adapted. They responded to pressure. They shifted into safer zones and they adjusted their behavior to survive. If you want to be successful after the first week, you have to understand what's happening and adjust right along with them. In this episode, we're going to break it down step by step. We'll talk about the pressure push, the concept of refuge zones, the importance of overlooked hideouts, and the natural mid-September behavioral shifts that change how elk move and respond. By the end of this video, you'll have a clear strategy for staying in the elk even when the easy days of opening week are over. Let's start with the foundation. Understanding the pressure push. When we talk about the pressure push, what we're talking about is the collective effect of hunters hitting the mountains. Opening weekend brings in a flood of hunters, trucks at every trailhead, ATVs buzzing down roads, calls echoing across drainages, and human scent drifting through the timber. Elk are survivors, and they've been dealing with this for generations. They know how to respond, and they usually do it faster than most hunters realize. Elk are incredibly sensitive to pressure. A few blown stalks or too much calling can shift a herd out of an area. By the second or third day of season, most elk in a high traffic unit have already started adjusting. They might pull into thicker timber where visibility is low and hunters are less likely to follow. Shift elevation, sometimes dropping lower into timbered pockets, other times climbing higher into remote basins. Move closer to private land boundaries where they feel safer. Go nocturnal, feeding and moving mostly under the cover of darkness, bedding earlier and getting up later. They don't always travel miles away, but they do change patterns enough to throw unprepared hunters off their game. The pressure push happens fast. Elk don't need a week to figure it out. A single day of heavy activity can alter their movements. By day 3 of the season, it's common to see bugling activity drop, especially in areas with high hunter numbers. If you're waiting for the second week to really get after it, you're already behind the curve in a lot of instances. So how do you handle the pressure push? The key is to expect it and plan for it. A few strategies might include hunt where others won't. Elk don't necessarily go to the most remote spots. They go to the spots where they're least bothered. That could mean a gnarly, deadfall choked north face, or it could mean a tiny overlooked pocket near a road. The trick is to think differently than the majority of hunters. Pay attention to hunter flow. Where are the trucks parked? Where are the easy ridges and glassing points? Elk are aware of that same traffic. Get off those beaten paths. Focus on transition zones. When elk feel pressure, they still need to move from feed to bed and back again. They may do it more cautiously, but those transition areas, the edges of meadows, saddles leading to cover, benches halfway up a slope, become the best places to cut them off. Adjust your calling. After opening week, elk are already educated. Overcalling, especially bugling every few minutes, can work against you. Subtle cow sounds or even silence and ambush setups often become more effective. The pressure push is not a death sentence for your hunt. It's just the first real test. Elk don't leave the unit, they just change their patterns. If you can anticipate those changes and be willing to go where others won't, you'll find elk even after the opening week chaos has ended. When the pressure builds, elk don't just scatter randomly across the mountains. They're strategic. Over years of hunting seasons, they've learned which areas offer safety and which don't. These places are what I call refuge zones, areas where elk can ride out hunting pressure, feel secure, and still have access to the essentials they need: food, water, and cover. So what makes a refuge zone? Refuge zones usually share a few characteristics. Steep and nasty terrain. Elk know that steep country keeps most hunters out. If a ridge requires clawing through deadfall or climbing 1,000 vertical feet of loose shale, odds are most hunters will avoid it. Elk, on the other hand, thrive in that type of ground. Thick cover. When pressure hits, elk head for dark timber, tangled drainages, and pockets of blowdown. They don't need to see far, they just need to feel hidden. Distance or barriers. Refuge zones might be several miles from the nearest road, but distance isn't the only factor. A fast-moving creek, cliffs, or walls of deadfall can all act as natural barriers that keep hunters out. Proximity to boundaries. Public-private boundaries are one of the most consistent refuge zones. Elk understand where they're safe. They may feed on public land at night, but quickly slip back across the fence line at first light. After opening week, elk aren't just hiding all day. They're adapting their whole schedule around these sanctuaries. They'll spend daylight hours bedded deep inside these zones, then cautiously move out to feed or water under the cover of darkness. Bulls may even relocate their harems in these areas, making it tough to draw them out. This is why hunters who push hard into the ugly country often find elk when everyone else is claiming they've disappeared. They didn't disappear, they just relocated to their sanctuary. One of the best things you can do is identify potential refuge zones before season even starts. When you're e-scouting or boots on the ground scouting, ask yourself, where would elk go if hunters started flooding this drainage? Which ridges or basins are the hardest to access? Where are the steep, dark north faces that people avoid? Is there private land nearby that creates a safe pocket? Mark those places. Even if elk aren't there during summer scouting, once hunting pressure ramps up, they're the first places you should check. Here's the catch. Hunting a refuge zone isn't easy. You can't just waltz in blowing a bugle every 50 yards. You have to be smart. Enter quietly. Elk in refuge zones are already pressured. The smallest mistake, like a careless skyline or too much noise, can send them even deeper. Time your hunts. These areas often pay off best in the middle of the week when hunting pressure is at its peak elsewhere. That's when elk have committed to using these sanctuaries. Commit to the grind. Hunting refuge zones often means long hikes, brutal climbs, and packing elk out of the nastiest country. But that's also why they work. Few hunters are willing to put in that kind of effort. When you do find elk in a refuge zone, it can be some of the best hunting you'll ever experience. These areas often hold the older age class bulls because they've survived years of pressure by relying on the same sanctuaries. If you're willing to go the extra mile, literally and figuratively, then you'll often find elk that nobody else is reaching. Not every elk reacts to pressure by heading miles deep into the brutal backcountry. In fact, some of the savviest bulls survive by doing the opposite, slipping into small, overlooked hideouts that most hunters walk right past. These areas might not look like much on a map, but to elk under pressure, they can feel like fortresses. So what are overlooked hideouts? An overlooked hideout is any spot close to human activity that hunters ignore because it seems too obvious or too small to hold elk. Think about pockets of timber near roads. A strip of dark timber 200 yards off a main access road might look too close to hold elk, but if everyone walks right by it or drives right by it headed for big country, that little pocket can become a safe haven. Low-lying drainages. While hunters push uphill chasing bugles, elk will often slide down into brushy creek bottoms or small benches tucked below the main ridges. Broken country. Small finger ridges, pockets of sagebrush with a few stands of timber, or little draws that don't look impressive can hold pressured elk. Edges of private land. Just like with refuge zones, elk will tuck into little slivers of cover right up against a boundary, moving out to feed on the safety of private at night and back into overlooked cover on public by day. One of the biggest mistakes hunters can make is assuming elk will always retreat way back in. Sometimes that is definitely true, but often elk also can prefer to stay close to where they were if it means less energy spent relocating. If they can find a pocket of cover that gives them security without requiring a long migration, they'll use it. Think about it this way. Why would a herd push 10 miles into brutal terrain if they can slide a half mile into a timber draw and be safe from hunters who never bother to look there? Elk are efficient survivors. Finding these areas comes down to changing how you look at a map and at the country itself. Instead of only focusing on the big basins and expansive meadows, train your eye to pick out tiny benches or shelves tucked against steep terrain, narrow bands of dark timber along ridgelines, small water sources or hidden seeps in low ground, transition cover between sage, aspens, and conifers that look insignificant at first glance. These spots often don't pop out in scouting reports because most hunters are conditioned to look for classic elk country, big ridges, big drainages, but pressured elk don't always play by our rules. When you decide to check out these areas, you need to hunt differently than you would in big, wide open basins. Slip in quiet. Don't go barging through. Still hunting edges. Use the wind carefully and be ready for close encounters. Glass the pockets. Sometimes a small opening or a sliver of meadow can reveal elk slipping in or out. Set up ambushes. Rather than calling aggressively, consider positioning yourself on travel routes between these hideouts and nearby feed or water. A subtle cow call or even pure silence can work better there. The beauty of overlooked hideouts is that they're often closer to access points, which means less brutal packouts compared to deep refuge zones. They also tend to hold elk even later in the season because once elk learn hunters avoid those spots, they keep using them year after year. For the hunter who's paying attention, these overlooked areas can be gold mines. While the crowds are hiking miles deep, you might be slipping into a little draw 400 yards from the road and finding the bull that everyone else has walked past all season long. By the time mid-September rolls around, it's not just hunting pressure changing elk behavior, it's the elk themselves. The first week of season often feels electric. Bugles everywhere, bulls running hot, cows moving all over. But as September deepens, you'll notice a shift. The rut is building, bulls are also wearing down, and herds are starting to settle into patterns that look very different than opening week. Early September is a chaos of satellites, young bulls testing their voices, and herd bulls trying to gather cows. By mid-month, the rut starts to hit full swing. A few key changes can happen. Herd bulls get tied down. Instead of roaming widely and bugling on every ridge, dominant bulls are now located with harems. They'll move less, bugle less often, and spend more time keeping cows together. Bugles become more selective. Bulls still bugle, but it's less random. Instead of screaming every few minutes randomly, they bugle to establish dominance or to respond to a specific threat. Energy conservation is key for them. The rut takes a toll. By mid-September, bulls are often leaner, more cautious, and conserving energy whenever possible. They're less likely to charge long distances after a call or leave cows, especially in pressured areas. Cows, as we've discussed in many videos, drive the rut, and their behavior shifts too, settling into feed and water patterns. By now, cows are locking into safer feeding areas and water sources. They're less nomadic than they were earlier. They're, tighter bedding zones. Cows will often choose bedding areas with more security and shade as temperatures fluctuate. This means elk movement windows narrow, less time on their feet, more time in cover. And there's an influence on the bulls. Because bulls are tied to the cows, hunters can't think only about where bulls want to be. You have to think about where the cows feel safe. The biggest mistake many hunters make after the first week is calling like it's still opening day, or just assume that more calling is going to be more effective as the rut ramps up. While that can be true, by mid-September, they've heard every bugle in the book, and many of them have been pressured hard. Tone down the bugles. Unless you're targeting a hot herd bull and can hear he's ready to fight, constant bugling is more likely to push elk away than draw them in. Use cow calls sparingly. Subtlety goes a long way. A few well-placed cow calls near travel routes or feeding zones can spark curiosity without putting elk on alert. Patience wins. Mid-September setups often require more time. Instead of running and gunning, you may need to sit longer in travel corridors or ambush spots. With pressure pushing elk into refuge zones and hideouts, and the rut pulling bulls into tighter patterns, your strategy should shift too. Focus on travel routes. Elk still have to move from feed to bed. Identifying those choke points becomes crucial. Hunting timing windows. The prime action often condenses into short windows at dawn and dusk. Be in position early and plan to stay until shooting light is completely gone. Think security first. If you're not finding elk in classic spots, assume they've chosen security over comfort. Look for places that balance both. Mid-September can feel frustrating because the easy bugles of opening week fade away, but it's also one of the best times to kill a mature bull if you understand what's happening. Bulls are tied down, cows are settling in, and elk are easier to pattern once you recognize their behavior has shifted. Success now isn't about chasing sound, it's about anticipating needs, reading subtle sign, and putting yourself in the right place at the right time. By the time you're a week or more into the season, elk hunting is no longer about chasing the chaos of bugles. It's about adapting, matching your strategy to how elk respond to pressure, where they find safety, and how their behavior shifts as September unfolds. If you can put all these pieces together, you'll stay in the game long after other hunters have started packing up camp. Opening week elk are vocal and visible, but after that, a lot of times they become survivors in pressured areas. Instead of asking, where did the elk go? The better question is, how did the pressure change their behavior? Did they slide into a refuge zone deep in the timber? Did they tuck into a small hideout near a road everyone else overlooks? Are the cows leading the herd to more secure feed and bedding patterns? When you start asking those questions, your map and your game plan begin to look different than the average hunter's. A strong post-opening week hunt plan has 3 pillars. Pressure awareness. Always know where hunters are concentrated. Parking lots, ATV trails, and easy glassing points tell you as much about where elk aren't as they do about where hunters are. Refuge and hideout scouting. Before you even step into the woods, have pins dropped on the nastiest, ugliest ground in the unit, as well as those little overlooked pockets others dismiss. When pressure mounts, those pins often turn into elk. Behavior adjustment. Recognize that mid-September, elk aren't acting like they did on opening day. Bulls are conserving energy, cows are narrowing their ranges, and bugling is more measured. Your calling, timing, and setups should match that reality. The hunters who tag out consistently after opening week aren't necessarily the best callers or fastest hikers. They're the ones who refuse to quit when the easy action dies down. They're adaptable, they expect things to change, and they welcome it. Elk are survivors. They thrive by adjusting to pressure and shifting to security. As hunters, we need to be survivors too, willing to change tactics, grind harder, and keep pushing when most guys head home empty-handed. If you can commit to that mindset, you'll not only find elk after opening week, you'll separate yourself from the majority of hunters who let frustration dictate their choices. If this breakdown helps you think differently about post-opening week elk hunting, imagine what you'll get inside of Team Backbone. That's our inner circle of hunters who want deeper strategies, direct access to me, and a like-minded tribe that pushes each other forward. Team members get exclusive content, private community access, gear discounts, and monthly giveaways. You can learn more and join us at backboneunlimited.com under the membership tab. Thanks for being here. Until next time, train harder, hunt smarter, and never settle.